Yo, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing? I'm just gonna take a second here to admire the art. I don't know who did this. I just found it online somewhere, but this is dope. This is beyond dope. I need this on a t-shirt, framed on my wall, something. This is sick. Anyway, on to business. On to business. Hope everybody had a good week. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. But right now, where's my tab? Okay, right now we are less than a month away from Summer Games Fest, kicking off June 6th at 5. But right now, the big news that's been going around the community as of late has been this shit. This shit. I'm not into Magic the Gathering, but if it's FF7 related, you know it's going to draw some eyes. The Sephiroth Fabled Soldier card that is also linked to what could be Safer Sephiroth in Part 3. Says Nomura, this time around I drew Sephiroth on both the front and the back sides of the card. I actually drew them so that they would join up if placed on top of one another, so if you manage to get two of the same card and line them up, you'll see how the original illustration looked. There's also a reason that the design for Safer Sephiroth is different from the original game, but I unfortunately can't share more on that because it's in Part 3. It's in Part 3. I thought he dropped a special message to the fans, but I guess this was it. So, anyway, yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. That's disgustingly good. That is God tier art, buddy. At the bottom there, you see a little baby Sephiroth. I know he's a teenager around this time. I was playing Ever Crisis back when it first came out, but I ultimately dropped it because I didn't like the progression systems all that much. But I've been paying attention a lot to the Young Sephiroth story on the Sector 6 channel. Be sure to give him a sub because he does very good work on that channel, especially breaking down these First Soldier stories. So I'm gonna get into this at some point. When I unlock First Soldier, you might see some videos pumping out. So be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. Then up top, we've got the Seph Dog we all know and love. Love it, love it. And right above that, we've got Bizarro Sephiroth, but not Bizarro Sephiroth. Sephiroth Reborn, as they're calling him in Rebirth. And then you've got, of course, Safer Sephiroth. This is sick. This is just so sick. Right off the bat, you notice the differences. He's got both arms. In the original game, he has one arm, and it's being substituted by that wing. Yeah. That wing substitutes for the right arm. And he still has the wing, but both arms. And the big story for me is the facial expressions. Like, this guy looks drained. He looks absolutely exhausted. He looks like every player who completed all the Chadley missions and he's just done. Good stuff. I can't wait. I can't wait. But the real reason we're out here today is because I got a rather long comment on the subtext reaction video. You see it right here? This is a doozy. This is the first comment I've ever gotten on my channel that was this long. So buckle in, fix yourself a drink, some snacks, because I'm going to go through every paragraph as best as I can because I figured a regular response in the comments wasn't going to suffice. I had to make a video for this. So special thanks to Brian Hickman, who's also a new subscriber. Thank you, Brian, for subscribing. I hope you stick around for the long term because it's comments like this. It's comments like this that make me enthusiastic about the game and that I'm actually drawing some eyes in the community. I really do appreciate this. So, let's do it. Okay. I believe we are meant to pick up on details implying that this remake trilogy is more of a sequel. It is, and these are not a red herring. Sequel, if only in knowledge coming from the end of Advent Children, the characters here. Sephiroth and Aerith, but at times also others. For the most part, I think, and always have thought, that Sephiroth and Aerith were the two X factors that clued everybody into the fact that this game is indeed a remake, and they're the only two characters that have advanced knowledge of events. Red too, but that came later after Aerith made contact with him. Plenty have speculated similar, but I really believe the connection adds up to or links with quotes that devs speak of with the remake series and Advent Children were proved to be through AC as we know it, occurring chronologically after these games, but with changed events in that time from the movie due to how this remake series may end. It all depends on how this really lines up. If we're going by chronological order, Advent Children should take place 2 years after the original game. But if Part 3 syncs up to Advent Children, I like to think we're going to just walk into it. Like, we're not going to know until we know. That and knowledge from the end of AC linking back through the live stream where time doesn't appear to really function the same way to the beginning of Remake, hence a link is already present. You might be right there. You might already be right. Because there's certain things that are said during Rebirth and Remake that make you think that it's already happening. Like music cues. I can't think of any dialogue at the top of my head. The Sephiroth fight at the end of Remake, that was very Advent Children-esque. You know, that could be a link that's already there. Things like the assess info on Whisper mini-bosses at Remake's end clearly being Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo fighting to protect the future that gave shape to them. Yeah. We might have already changed Advent Children stuff just by taking them out. Our party defeats those three, potentially setting up a change in that future. Not sure that's where this all goes, but certainly there are some leads in the story so far to that. Because all throughout Rebirth, we didn't see the ramifications of that fight. They talked about changing fate, but then all of a sudden, we didn't even get that impression. That could eventually come back around. The Whisper fight, the Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo Whispers that we beat, that could come back around in Part 3, and I believe it will. Because that's too big to just not have any effect on anything. Not sure where you fall on this, but I'm also in the camp that believes another world was created at the Forgotten Capital altar with Cloud and Aerith at Rebirth's end. At first, I was kind of in that camp because you see the rainbow lighting effects, and that got a lot of people into thinking that the timeline branched off. Not so much anymore. Not so much anymore. I think that Sephiroth merged the worlds. I think he merged our 616 main world to a world where Aerith still dies. But he didn't think it all the way through. I'm thinking that he took a world where Aerith still dies, just a random world, and just merged it, and everything after that, he could still lose. He didn't think all that way through, because all he's concentrating on right now is making sure that Cloud is still in that dark place, because he needs Cloud in a negative space for his whole plan to work. I'm also in the mind that Sephiroth needs Cloud for a vessel, for whatever. We still don't know the full extent of his plan, but for it to work, he needs Cloud to experience this significant loss. He needed Cloud to experience Aerith dying. It's also why his Black Whispers made sure that Cloud saw that. The White Whispers were trying to keep us away, but the Black Whispers were there to make sure we saw it. Cloud being in that dark space is vital to Sephiroth's plan, but he didn't think it all the way through. I really think the world that he merged the main world with is going to have the same effects, if us not getting there in a different way. And it's kind of been the theme of the first two games. You still end up in familiar territory, but getting from A to B is always different. Specifically, I think this was Cloud's dream of saving Aerith that created this timeline. I try not to use the D word in these kinds of stories. To imply that this was a dream just makes me think everything we've been doing up to this point has not been happening. And I hate that. It's the biggest cop-out, the biggest creative cop-out that a game developer, a script writer, anybody could put together. And I'm just not on board with any of this being a dream. There was this one guy I forget his name, but he put out a video that proposed the idea that the remake trilogy is a dream, and it all started when Zack left Cloud behind the rocks when he went to go fight the troopers, where he ultimately died. I'm like, okay, I can see where you're coming from with that, but to suggest that all of this is not happening, I mean, we know that Cloud is an unreliable narrator, and his mind is clouded, hence the name. But for a lot of this to just not actually be happening, it's going to be the biggest killjoy among the community. If all of this ends up being a dream, people are just going to hate it, me included. So I just try not to use the word dream. He actually saved her, but Sephiroth basically hijacked the game, did his own thing, and saved over the file. That's how I'm looking at it. This ties into what I personally think these worlds are. Basically, I think we unlocked a mechanism the planet has to enable new dreams to form for its reality, or its fate with our defeat of the Harbinger at Remake's End. Then, as Barrett says in Aerith's room in Remake, ultimately the planet decides her fate. She's always trying to have it her way or something like that. Yeah, I kind of thought that the Harbinger was that mechanism. I kind of thought that the Harbinger was a weapon that defended timelines or worlds. We defeated it, and now there's no mechanism. After everybody finished Remake, that was the general consensus. Oh, we took down the Harbinger of Fate, so now anything goes. Anything goes. Everything could be completely different. But that's a harder story to write. From a development perspective, that's a harder story to write. The devs know that we are expecting the same Final Fantasy we grew up on. To simply change the entire landscape would be to make an entirely different story. And people already don't like what they're doing right now. There's a portion of the community who already don't like what they're doing, and it's mostly been the same. But ultimately, the planet decides her fate. I'm thinking maybe Minerva could be involved. Minerva is basically a spokesperson for the planet itself. So if we have to fight her, that'd be a pretty cool fight. But then there's the planet itself. If it doesn't have any safeguards, what kind of power does it have? Like what kind of power does the planet itself has? Because since 97, the only thing we know about the planet when it's in danger is it calls upon weapons. I don't think we've ever seen the planet do something itself. If a planet has a backup plan where it itself acts on its own, I'd like to see it. It always has agents doing its work for them. So while a character's deep desire or dream might form a new world or fate for the planet that could become its living or prime reality, ultimately the consensus of the livestream chooses to roll with its current living reality or swap to that alternate, a failsafe the planet might have for avoiding a true cataclysm, or perhaps similar to how Holy is described to work in OG per Bugenhagen, where all that's good for the planet remains what's not erased. That is a lot, my guy. So we're really thinking about what-if scenarios in the live stream, which is how I look at the multiverse in Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it's coming off as what-if scenarios. They're all tangible. That's what I'm hoping on, is that all of these worlds are tangible and they're not dreams. Aerith says, my dream, but I don't think they mean that in a literal sense. But it kind of doesn't matter because they die out, as Sephiroth said. They all merge, and there's nothing we can really do about it, and we don't have to worry about it and follow it all that much. When the livestream consensus doesn't choose a potential dream world that exists for a time, as Sephiroth tells Cloud in Rebirth after Aerith's dream world date, but it's ultimately doomed to return to the planet, the livestream. So I think these alternate worlds are formed from characters' deep desires, hopes, and dreams. Okay. And could become the planet's new reality if the collective livestream chose that, but otherwise exist for a time as independent little bubble dream worlds in the livestream, like pocket dimensions, but also not fully joined with it yet. Any of these could become the prime living world if the collective livestream chose it, but thus far in the story, it has not seemingly replaced much of living reality with any of these, because it's all been the same, right? It's mostly been lined up with OG with a little bit of new stuff, unfounded territory going through, sprinkled in, which I'm not 100% sure. We are actually in the prime world. I believe we are in the prime world, but if we're not, they're doing a really good job making us think we are. Yeah. So you're suggesting that the collective live stream has control over what reality is. And by the collective live stream, I'm assuming you mean the planet itself, and it has the power to choose what its reality is. But from a development standpoint, from a writer's room standpoint, it's not replacing much of living reality, because for the sake of us being familiar with the FF7 story, it's going to be the same. It's looking the same. Ultimately, it's going to be different. And Part 3 has to land the plane on that. At some point, it has to be different. The bulk of Part 3 has to be uncharted territory. Unless they want like 75% of the game to be what we remember and the other 25% being uncharted territory, At Rebirth's End, Sephiroth wants a reunion of these worlds, but I think that's only part of his plan. It is part of his plan, yeah. At the time, we thought remake was timelines, but it's not timelines, it's worlds. So whenever I'm talking to people in person about this and they say timelines, I don't correct them, because that's how they interpret it, and it's just easier that way. And Rebirth was all about the multiverse, introducing the multiverse. So he wants to change fate and then change the world, just change reality altogether, and the laws that govern this world. He wants to change all of that. Given what I think those worlds are per my description above, I believe Sephiroth mainly wants to unite a bunch of doomed dream worlds where he's been cultivating, where despair and negative emotions dominate the souls within, thus increasing the amount of the life stream that's corrupted in that way, where they're reunited and folded back into the collective life stream. Dude, you think about this way too much, dude, but I like that though. You probably think about this more than I do. Essentially the corruption of Lifestream he's doing in Lifestream Black portion of the Maiden Who Travels the Planet novel. The one thing I really haven't put together, and maybe you can help me out with this, the one thing I really don't get is why negative spirit energy is a factor. Like, why does that matter? Well, Genova cells thrive on dark emotions, but why is that so key? Is he trying to create geostigma before it actually takes over in Advent Children? Because reading what you just, this first part of this paragraph, that's what it sounds like he's trying to do. He's trying to get geostigma going before Advent Children. I suspect his dream world is the infinity he speaks of in Temple of the Ancients, where the normal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, normal life stream function is broken or stopped. To get the planet to not veto that world becoming its prime reality at some point, where he forces the planet to consider a new reality, he will need enough of the life stream corrupted to side with his chosen dream world as the planet's fate, which is why he wants formation of many dream worlds he can fill with despair and then fold them into the life stream to be a possibility. Bro. A world war with all its loss and despair that he kicks off via ruthless manipulation would also help this along. That's a lot. Like, I've read this paragraph a few times over the past couple of days, and I don't know if I have something for that. It's just very well thought out. But how does that coincide with converging worlds and all of that? Maybe you could help me out with that, because there's a lot of factors that are going into this plan, and they don't seem to have anything to do with one another. So back to Rebirth's End, Cloud may have formed his own dream world where he saved Aerith at the end, and while the planet doesn't choose it as its lived reality there, Cloud can see into it and her at the end, along with its telltale rip of the sky. I think that same dream world church where Zack ends up in... Okay, but I will agree that it's the same world where Zack ends up in at the end. The world that Sephiroth merged with the main world, where Aerith still dies, is the one where Zack lives. So that's how we run into him. The thing is, Zack has to join the party. From like a gameplay standpoint, Zack has to join this party at some point in the game. It can't be in the last 5, 6, 7 hours. It has to be relatively early. He has to get a skill tree. He has to get weapons. He has to learn abilities. Zack needs to get the full-blown progression treatment in this next game. I could be way off, but I suspect Part 3 will feature Zack and Aerith working from Cloud's dream world in segments. And of course the pivotal Cloud and Tifa livestream sequence, this time maybe with Zack and Aerith involvement. Okay, so I think that the livestream sequence will feature Zack instead of Tifa. I don't think Aerith will be involved, because she wasn't there in Nibelheim. Cloud didn't even know her yet. Tifa could still be involved, but I kind of don't think so, because she fell in the live stream and it seemingly altered her perception. Tifa has essentially become an unreliable narrator, so she doesn't know what's real and what's not. When Cloud was holding Aerith in his arms, she saw blood, then she didn't, so now her perception is warped. So she may not be involved in the live stream sequence anymore. I kind of don't think so. I think it's going to be Zack, because he's the only other character who is there, and he doesn't have a weird mental health issue. He's the most clear-headed guy out of the whole bunch. Between Cloud and Tifa, Zack is the most clear-headed character out of those three. So I think it'll be Zack and Zack alone that helps Cloud piece his memories back together during the live stream sequence. A final end to Jenova that prevents the worst outcomes? I believe so too. Like, we have to put Jenova away once and for all. No massive devastation that killed thousands, no geostigma, maybe no Laz, Yazoo, and Kadash. Sorry. There has to be an ultimate end to Jenova, especially if they're going to make more Final Fantasy VII games going forward. Fingers crossed on that. They've said as much that there could be a future for FF7 beyond the trilogy, and for that to work, there has to be no more Sephiroth and no more Jenova. But how to get rid of Jenova is tricky, as Advent Children's geostigma implies that the result of OGFF7 didn't fully accomplish this. True. Related to that goal, though, I think we'll get a minor Sephiroth redemption where he embodies the theme of acceptance himself after being beaten at the end and accepts returning to the live stream finally, echoing Kadash's acceptance ending at Advent Children's conclusion, but not before perhaps he leverages the portion of control he has over the live stream to encourage it to choose a dream world that does not have Jenova, or the Gi for that matter, as its fate. I think somebody pitched this over on Max's channel one day, that Sephiroth will be a good guy for a bit, depending on how the first soldier lines up. Maybe it would make more sense if they set it up in the first soldier, and they kind of already are. There's these segments where Sephiroth is talking to Lucretia, but it's actually Jenova, and the game tells you it's Jenova. It's pretty crazy. So Sephiroth has been being manipulated by Jenova since he was a kid. Like, the seed has been planted, and if Sephiroth breaks away from that somehow to jump on our side and put Jenova away, that would make sense. This might even make the planet's reality from Cloud's dream world, which contained a living Aerith and or Zack, what we're left with at the end, though that might be too happy an ending. I'd be happy with it myself, as long as we would already have had our big acceptance moment with characters prior to this, thinking we had said our goodbyes. So the message of acceptance would still land despite a surprise happier conclusion. I think we all want a definitive end for all these characters, but not so definitive that there aren't any more games coming out, not even books. If there's future FF7 in the works, I'm happy. But if there's a definitive happy end to all our characters, I'm happy with that too. I'm good with that. But if it's so final that it doesn't even hint at future FF7, then I'm gonna be a little bittersweet about that. I'd find it kind of poetic if Sephiroth gave Cloud his dream, his promised land back, as part of a Jenova erasing parting heroic act before returning to the planet. Yeah, I was kind of hinting at that in the previous paragraph. There's some decent setup for at least a return to the planet finally form of acceptance from Seph and Ever Crisis in portions of these games, so we'll see. Whether Sephiroth might also give some characters a chance at a life in the end is iffy. Again, I don't think it runs counter to the central acceptance theme if it's post characters grappling with loss and acceptance already in the story, and comes as a surprise stemming from Sephiroth's own acceptance, but concluding with a final end for himself and Jenova, I think is very likely, and I think so too. It just has to happen if there's going to be future FF7. We can't have the same villains over and over again. Like, how many times have we fought Sephiroth throughout the course of FF7's history? Hell, even in Kingdom Hearts. I'm not a Kingdom Hearts guy, but I know we fight him there. I took in the original game back on its release in '97 as a 15-year-old then, and have been thinking about what ifs for characters and what the original game's ending implied for what will likely be 30 years by the time Remake Part 3 drops. It'll be 30. So I love that a greater community is thinking on this now. Thank you for being part of it with your content. Thanks, man. In any case, the tome above is where I'm at in terms of Part 3 predictions for now. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, and thanks for reading through this long post. I played the original game back in '97, but I was 14, so we're not that far apart from each other. It's due to drop in 27, so it will be 30 years. I didn't have as big of an emotional attachment as most players in the community do. I thought it was a really cool game. It was my second RPG I ever played, the first one being the Mario RPG, which I wanted at some point, but I don't want to buy a Switch just for one game, especially if it's a game I could finish in a couple of days, maybe 3. But when Remake came out in 2020, I was amped. Like, what's that going to look like? What's that even going to look like? I had to get it. I just had to get it. I got a PS4 just for Remake. I don't even have any more PS4 games. Remake was the only game I got. And I love what they're doing with this game right now. I love how fleshed out it is. I love how fleshed out the characters are. I love the battle system more than anything. I'm going to make more battle videos soon, so keep your notifications on. If you've been playing through the game and you got problems with certain bosses or whatever, I'm going to make videos for that because I love beating up bosses. I love beating up bosses. It's one of my favorite things, especially when you got it mastered. I'm not primarily a Final Fantasy VII channel. I try to do other things too. In the early days of the channel, I was reviewing Marvel shows. I'm a big Marvel head. I love Marvel. Even now, during the fall off, you know, even now, I still love Marvel. I probably wouldn't recommend watching the old videos though. They're very grainy, and I was still finding my footing as a content creator, and I still am. But even now, I don't really review Marvel shows anymore. I might do a tier list for Marvel TV shows because right now I'm rewatching all the Marvel TV shows just for the hell of it. And I'm on Agent Carter right now, and it's okay. So I'll probably do a tier video sometime for all the Marvel shows. But I've found myself doing a lot of FF7 stuff lately because I'm just obsessed with it. I love it. I love FF7. I don't know everything about it, but I like to think I've taken in just about every grain of content there is. From the original game to the books, of course Advent Children, I know a little bit about Before Crisis, just a little bit. They need to bring that back. Is that going to be an Ever Crisis? I think it should be an Ever Crisis, but Ever Crisis should really come to consoles. They should really bring Ever Crisis to consoles with all the systems reworked to line up with the remake trilogy. That's what I want. I doubt they'll do it, but they really should. And there's still more. You love this stuff. I like this, man. I like this. This just shows me how enthusiastic you are about this game. And it makes me more enthusiastic about making videos. I really do appreciate this. I want to say I could be very wrong about the remake project being a kind of future knowledge loop sequel and what the worlds they show are. I also may be way off in where I think it's going, but that's why I wrote so much and enjoyed sharing my idea here. And you've got some good ideas. Better than mine. Mine aren't that much different than most of the people you've probably watched. Like, I subscribe to a lot of Maximilian Dude's ideas. Sleep Easy drops really good theory videos. If you haven't seen any of Sleep Easy's theories, he probably drops a video once a year because they're so well thought out. Even if it proves to miss the mark, the response and discussion it might prompt will offer me other perspectives and hopefully foster new ideas, or at least help me refine what I'm thinking. I think you're on the right track. I was with you in that I never checked out a remake or rebirth story or dismissed it as some older fans like me did, but just because it came off as different or initially confusing. That only drove me to think on it more. Same. I also thought the same as you that on my first playthrough of Rebirth, the Sephiroth was in control of the worlds and overwrote the reality where Cloud saved Aerith. He saved over the file. He overwrote the save file. And I'm going to stand on that. That could still be exactly it, but I've since come to consider that the planet is still in control of what reality it chooses for its fate at Rebirth's End, and that control over this is something Sephiroth is still working towards by Rebirth's End, something he must get enough of the livestream on side to achieve. Per livestream Black, yeah. Hell, it's likely under my current idea that in Part 3, Sephiroth will use that world where Cloud saved Aerith as a bargaining chip to get Cloud on board with his plan. Okay, something like, Cloud, I've led you to the strength you've always desired, so you could create a world where Aerith lives. I only want to preserve that world, and so you could help me do that and bring her back, only if you will aid me. I like that, dude. I showed you what could happen, and I can make that possible if you help me with my plan. But Sephiroth can't be trusted, though. Sephiroth has a real Thanos complex. He thinks what he's doing is righteous, but he's got a very destructive approach to it. To Cloud, it means more than anything that he's a hero. He thinks he saved Aerith, but then Sephiroth canceled it, and now Sephiroth knows that is in Cloud's head. He knows that's in Cloud's head now. So now he's just going to use that to get Cloud to join him. But then he could ultimately pull the rug out from under him. It's so nuts, it could work. I wouldn't be surprised if he offers a falchion bargain around that dream world of Clouds to get his compliance or strand him there to get him out of the way. Yeah, see? He could just pull the rug out from under him. They could even use this arc to expound upon where Cloud was mentally during his coma in OG after he turns up in Medill. In that world, with the Aerith he saved, reluctant to wake from it into the prime reality where Tifa waits by his comatose side in Medill. That's so twisted, bro. Dude. I don't know if I can match up to your ideas, dude. Like, you really think on this shit, dude. I think part 3 may be pretty wild in what it shows, and I still solidly believe this time at Curtain Call there will be differences from the original. Oh, it has to be different. I was saying this earlier. It has to be different. Why put all this work into setting things up to be different if they're just going to be the same? Either things are going to be completely different, or they're going to be the same, but we get there in a different way. I'll take either one, but I'll be happier if things are completely different. My guess is being Genova's deleted for good, Sephiroth will accept his end, and maybe, just maybe, characters will be given a dream world where they can finally live normal lives together. Like they're all in pocket dimensions living their happy lives? Okay, yeah. Not pursued by Shinra, not bearing the weight of saving the world or being the last ancient, just boundless freedom shared with friends, liberated out from under a steel sky. It's happy, maybe sappy, but if done, as I know these writers can, it'd be powerful and earned. I want it to be earned. Like, don't just make these arbitrary decisions. Don't do what the purists want them to do. Do what you plan to do. That's how I feel about Kevin Feige and the MCU right now. Don't let these outside casuals tell you what to do. Stick to the plan. Do what you were always going to do. And I'm not the only fan who's waited so long to see a definitive close to this story. Same. Looking forward to more. Grew up in Floyd's Knob on the Indiana side of the river, just out of Louisville. So shout out there. Shout out, buddy. It's been a long time since I've gone to Thunder there, but good memories. I haven't been to a Thunder over Louisville since 2004. Not trying to go out to Louisville unless I'm going with people, because those crowds are nuts. Those crowds are crazy, and I don't even go to Derby anymore because there's no more cruising. I don't know if you ever went out to Derby and hit downtown and cruised around downtown. They don't even do that anymore. So there's just no reason for me to be out there unless I'm with people. Oh boy, dude, this was fun. This was kind of fun, dude. I really do appreciate this comment. You really gave me something to do, and that's much appreciated. I encourage everybody who's watching these videos to leave comments similar to this. I probably won't make a video. I felt like this was a special occasion for me to make a video because I don't get comments like these, and I hope to get more. Oh wait, what else am I working on? I want to do a tier video for Marvel shows, some FF7 Rebirth battle videos. I'm still watching random gamers play Rebirth. So just be sure to make sure notifications are on. And if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe and help me get to 900. I'm going to get to work on cutting this video up and putting it out to y'all. Once again, to Brian Hickman, thank you for subscribing and thanks for the comment. Please stick around for the long term. Same goes to everybody else. And I will see y'all for the next one.